Well, here we are, folks, alive and kicking. And I don't just mean that as some trite, soul-soothing phrase. We are actually here. We made it through. Maybe we're a little bruised, maybe a little heavy laden, maybe highly pissed off, maybe discouraged. But we are here. And I just got a little question for you. I honestly want to know, how are you? Have you stretched? When's the last time you've taken a breath? Have you talked to another human today? And I don't mean just text them. Have you talked to somebody today? If you haven't, let this be your gentle nudge to get outside of your own thoughts for a minute. Look, if you need a moment, wrapped up in a blanket on the couch, I get it. I had mine. But I don't want you to stay in the funk if it's not where you belong right now. Some of you reached out wondering if I was good, especially after yesterday when I was just posting silly TikToks at 2 a.m. And yes, I took a moment because I wanted to respond to what's occurred and not react. There's enough noise out here, and I really want this space to be a space where we slow down, take a breath, and actually think before we speak. I'm not here to be a talking head. Y'all can get that on your local news station. So here I am with a few thoughts after the election. I won't be before you long, but take a second and come hither. Sit on down and let's talk a while. Yesterday started pretty normal for me. My dog had a grooming appointment, so I'm up moving through my morning routine. But then I caught a smell that I know I didn't leave behind. And so I went downstairs. And sure enough, my dog had left me a surprise, if you will. And let me tell you, accident, that doesn't quite do it justice. Number 2 is still quite too tame. That little joker boo-booed, and he did it everywhere. Now, if you've got a dog, you know that sometimes they do this. They get sick and they have an accident, and it is what it is. So I wasn't mad at the dog, but I did have a moment. It was like a bad omen moment. Like, really? Why today, bruh? You ain't done this in years. And now you want to do it on Tuesday, November the 5th of 2024, when we're supposed to be electing Kamala Harris to the presidency? But I shook it off, cleaned it up, got him to the groomer, and I went on with my day. By the time the polls started to roll in, I felt off. My partner has been saying for months that this felt more like 2016 than 2020, and here we were, watching that feeling play out. People were texting me, checking in, and I was hanging on to hope, telling them, no, I'm not freaking out yet. We have to wait on those Rust Belt states. What about Pennsylvania? They told us it was going to be Pennsylvania, but as the results came in by 10 o'clock, it became fairly clear. Kamala wasn't about to pull it off. So after sitting on the couch until 2 a.m. and going through all the stages of grief at once, I mean, I was in denial, and then I was bargaining, then I was mad as hell, then I was depressed. And by the wee hours of the morning, I hit acceptance for the first time. But it has truly been a roller coaster ride, and I'm certain I'm not the only one who feels that way. But as today has progressed, I returned to a thought that I had back in May before the switch. Something is broken in this country, deep down, and there is so much work to do. For months now, I have felt this urgency, this need for healing. We are living in 2 completely different worlds that just don't connect anymore. And listen, I'm not here to blame anybody or point any fingers. That's cute. But it misses the point. I told my partner months ago, and I'll say it here, we need a serious, personal, and collective soul search. The work that's before us isn't about reacting to an election because the issue clearly exists beyond the 2 and 4 year cycles. And we honestly have to take the time to wrestle with what is actually at the root of the problem, or we're going to keep on finding ourselves here year after year after year. Look, when Kamala Harris entered the race, I was hopeful, not just because I wanted to see her win, but because I, like everyone else, was just really happy we finally had a candidate who didn't sound like she was going to have a lung collapse every time she spoke. Or a candidate who wouldn't, fall and break her hip every time she ascended the steps of Air Force One. I love you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. Although if y'all was going to do this, y'all could have kept Joe. But here we are. And while politicians and political pundits scramble to assign blame and make sense of what happened, I'm thinking We're so far beyond that. What's clear to me is this: there's a fracture at the heart of our culture that's only getting wider, and no single election is going to fix it. Trust me, not this one either. No single politician is going to fix it. Trust me, this one ain't gonna do it either. Furthermore, there's nothing else that Kamala Harris coulda, shoulda, woulda done. It is what it is, and a different candidate wouldn't have solved the problem either. Anyone would have bumped up against this. And I'm tired of the trite political platitudes of we're gonna honor the free and fair election. There's enough evidence to suggest that this election was at least one step past free and fair. Bomb threats at multiple polling sites, multiple times during the day. But I ain't gonna talk about that. Instead, I'm gonna reflect on my journey up until this point. Because I've worked as a DEI consultant for at least a couple of decades now. And it's not lost on me that DEI is under fire. I know, it's been under fire before. Some are actively working to dismantle it right now. But the heart of this work, it's not politics, it's not slogans. It's actually about DEI. And little does the Republican Party know, or at least they don't admit, that what they're wrestling with is also about DEI. It's about humanity, identity. It's about humanizing each other, seeing people as more than just votes, numbers, or cogs in a machine. One story that comes to mind that sums up what I'm talking about, I think it does at least. A while back, I was hired to work with a mostly white board on a DEI project related to sort of board governance and the organization's identity and their mission and their vision. So we did a day-long retreat doing some board development, and we had our 3-hour morning session. And at lunch, I was seated at a table with the board's power players. So I'm sitting there trying to just enjoy my salad because I've been putting in work for 3 hours, and I'm listening to them go around and around the circle about systemic injustice and how they should solve it and how they could use their collective power and their finances to shift the culture. And based on what we covered that morning, it was developmentally appropriate. You know, I had done my work, so I expected this to be happening at lunch. I just didn't expect to be in the midst of it. But they were exactly where they should have been. And I was just trying to enjoy my salad without like ending up with tomato juice on my crisp white shirt. But as they were talking, I noticed that there was one white, older man, very well-tailored suit, very buttoned up. He was just sitting there, silent. In fact, I might even say he was stewing. Finally, as the lunch was wrapping up, he broke in and he asked, "I just want to know how much is going to be enough." And as you might imagine, that did not go over very well. Because these were progressive, liberal white folks, well-resourced, NPR listening, New York Times donating and subscribing, March for George Floyd, progressive, liberal white folks. And they went in on this man. But I felt like something was missing. But I was also trying to enjoy my salad. Naturally, after a couple of rounds, they turned to me, likely because I was hired to be there as the subject matter expert, but also because I was the only black man in the room. The conversation had reached a stalemate, and they wanted to know what I thought. Much to their surprise, I didn't jump on their bandwagon, even though it would have been very easy for me to do so. Instead, I looked at the man and I asked, "What does enough mean to you?" He looked at me in surprise. He said, "I've never been asked that question." The table was silent, waiting on him to give feedback to the question. Some of them looking at me like, "What's your point here? Tell them about racism. Tell them about white supremacy." Y'all been doing that for the last 30 minutes and it's gotten you nowhere. I need to hear about enough. After what felt like forever, he started to tell the table a story about his granddaughter. His first grandchild just turned 2. And he said, "I'm genuinely just worried that if things shift too much, she might have less than me." He was concerned that she may not be okay if that was the case. I looked at him and I said, "That's a great value, caring about your family. Let's imagine there's another person just like you, 2-year-old grandchild. And if you make $50 a day, she makes $5. How do you think she feels about the word enough? Is that a generational question? Or is that an ever-present question in this moment?" That conversation, that pause, that was real. The man wasn't just asking about some political stance. He was genuinely torn between his love for his family and this broader sense of change that he did not fully understand. And as the progressive liberal white folks, appropriately perhaps, went through their talking points, went through what they were supposed to say, went through their virtue signaling, went through their tone policing, their language policing, trying to get him to use the right words, but not as concerned about his actions, they found themselves in a stalemate, having two different conversations, living in two different worlds. Can you tell me about enough? That's where the real bridge building happens. It's in these moments where we stop talking at each other and actually listen. This is the kind of work that we need to be doing right now, creating human connections, reminding each other that we're more than just labels or opposing votes or belonging to a political party or wearing a trash bag or thinking somebody is crazy or educated or uneducated, black, white, or other. There's a place for that work, but I'm telling you that there's something deeper that is happening. We've been at this for at least the last decade. We are people. We don't get anywhere without the foundation of empathy and shared humanity. And as much as people want to attack DEI, that's what's at the core of the word. So hear me when I say that yesterday's election result was a sting. It stung bad, baby. But if you've been black in America like me all your life, it's a familiar sting. It's a sting that my ancestors have felt and lived through for generations. It's a sting that's in my bones, and I don't say that to normalize it. I say it as a fact. Now, and that's not your testimony, and you're feeling the sting for the first or maybe the second time, or you really just want it to go away, well, it's not going away. Welcome. There's work to do, but it's not about despair. It's not about blame. Even though there's plenty of it to go around, it's about focus. It's about asking yourself, what is my work? Where can I be effective? Whether that's activism, self-care, or just being there for others, find your work and get back to it. It may not be your plight to go reach across the aisle and talk to somebody in a board meeting and express empathy for an old, rich white man. That might not be your portion. Maybe your portion is creating space for people that are like you, to care for one another, to hold one another, because the next 4 years are going to take work. I'm not here to try to act like it's going to be easy. As much as the Democratic Party wants to normalize this, as much as Joe Scarborough and the Morning Joe crew try to normalize it, as much as The View try to just keep on going with business as usual, this is anything but I'll do another video about that. This is the last story, maybe, I think. I've been texting with a former church member turned friend over the last few weeks. This is a black woman, a black mother, whose black teenage sons were wrestling with the choice of voting for Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. And all of them reached different conclusions, but some reached the conclusion that Trump was the only vote. These young men raised in a faith-centered, Christian faith-centered home were really struggling to reconcile their identity as black Christian men with what they saw in the candidates, what the candidates' platforms put forward. This was no casual decision for them. They felt the weight of it. So my friend asked me, what can we do to help them understand what's at stake? We exchanged videos, resources, and had so many conversations leading up to the election. And as the polls closed, I texted her saying, no matter who they voted for, after this is over, I want to talk to them, especially the knuckleheads who may have voted for Trump. And I don't want to do it with judgment. I want to do it with love and curiosity. For me, this wasn't and isn't about condemnation. It's about connection. I genuinely wanted to and still want to understand why, with all the information out there, these young black men would make that choice that other black men made, but not as many as people said, because the black folks showed up as I knew they would all along. But I'm not here for blame. I wanted to and still want to hear from people who grappled with the decision, not those who were just following behind MAGA talking points, or those who have no understanding of the platform, or those who are just watching Fox News and Newsmax, but those who had engaged in a thoughtful decision-making process and reached a conclusion that seems like anathema to me. It's not about dismissing them. It's about bridging the divide, having a real conversation about what values and concerns were most pressing to them. Tell me, what does enough mean to you? That's what we need now. Dialogue, not judgment, not finger pointing, not blaming. Some of it is funny and cute, though. I ain't gonna lie. I appreciate those of y'all who are on TikTok saying, forget you, Florida. Don't ask me for no thoughts and prayers. Y'all stand in that gap for me. That's not the work that I'm called to right now. But I get the sentiment, but that's not my space right now. My space is to build understanding, because I've heard one too many people say, I don't like Trump or anything he says, but I like his policies. Now, I haven't had much success getting folks to tell me exactly what they liked about the policies, so I still remain genuinely curious, because this issue is going to keep coming up if we don't have a conversation. As I take my seat, for me, this election has exposed a two-pronged problem, one that we have to address if we're serious about making real change and seeing a different world than the one that we've stumbled upon today. The first issue is messaging. Democrats often get bogged down in complexity, trying to explain every jot and tittle, hoping people will connect the dots. It's like Steve Kornacki with all those election projections and all those numbers that he'd be going through on election night. It's very well intentioned, but it's quite overwhelming. Just tell me what you want me to know. Republicans, on the other hand, keep their messaging simple and consistent. You heard it this election. Kamala loves trans people. Close the border. Make America great again. They stick to the same 3 points no matter what. Democrats, by contrast, throw out so many points that messaging gets lost. I also have a small portfolio of executive coaching clients, many of whom are people of color who are either in or seeking executive leadership roles in organizations. And one of the things that I always say to them is, you need Republican talking points. They come to me with all of their questions about how do I navigate this as a queer person, as a woman, as a person of color in the organization. They're doing this to folks, and I want to fight for what's right. You need Republican talking points. Not because your content is bad, but because your clarity is lacking. Pick 3 things that you want people to know and bring it back to those every single time. When you're clear and consistent, people understand. This isn't about dumbing it down. It's about connecting in a way that sticks. The second issue is lack of emotional intelligence. I might also call this sort of lack of an ability to build trust or relationship. Say what you want about Donald Trump, and I got plenty that I want to say, but I don't think it's productive because I want to be effective. Not just right. Donald Trump taps into people's emotions, not because he cares about them, but because he knows fear and anger are powerful motivators. It's not about the facts for him. It's about stirring up feelings. Democrats, meanwhile, often miss that emotional connection by focusing too much on the right language. Do you want to be right or effective? I often ask clients, do you want to be right or effective? Right now, many Democrats and or would-be Democrats who are standing on some sort of moral high ground on a single issue are fixated on ideological purity and maintaining the moral high ground. And as much as I agree with them at my core, they are ineffective. I've got another thought about political pragmatism and ideological purity, but I've already gone longer than I wanted to, so I'll save that for another video. Ultimately, Donald Trump won this election. It's a hard pill to swallow, but it's the reality. Take your time. Lick your wounds. Grieve. Brush yourself off. Brush yourself off and brush yourself off. And when you're ready, let's get back to work together. Listen, I want to say thank you for being here and for being a part of this journey. I initially started this channel because I felt really compelled to use my voice for good and I needed a creative outlet. So even though Kamala didn't win, I'm still going to be right here making videos and trying to brighten my corner of the world and inspire folks to do work. I'm grateful to everyone who has already subscribed and to those who checked on me in the aftermath of the election. I'm good. I'm going through my grief process and I'm figuring it all out. Hopefully just like you. But one thing you can count on is I'm going to be right here. I ain't running scared. So don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Again, thanks to those who've already done so and to share my videos or liked or commented on things. I'm truly grateful and it helps us beat the YouTube algorithm. At the end of the day, I choose to believe that we're going to be all right. It's going to be a heavy lift. And some of these days it's going to feel real hellish, but we've done it before. And I choose to believe we can do it again. So find your work, lean into it, and let's keep moving forward together. Until the next time, I'm Brandon Thomas. Peace.